Thanks, man. Last summer, our governing board accepted a document, and that was part of the national search process that considered that we would adopt this as a church. It's a document called Ethical Guidelines for Congregational Behavior or Conduct. I was looking the wrong way. So I'd like to make sure that everybody has a chance to be aware of these. It's, just New Testament principles and all. Today I mentioned the second part of 7, not 27. What is our relationship as members to our church officers and leaders? It invites us to select our offers intentionally and impartially. Because in some churches, the same people are always in leadership and new people can't get in. And that's based on their commitments, competence, compassion, and maturity of faith. We are committed to having men, women, and youth serve with the various responsibilities of the congregation. I don't know, somewhere along the line, our junior diaconate got dropped, and we picked up this year, so our high school youth are serving as deacons in the first service, and that's been nice to see. We will provide opportunities for training, skill development, and faith formation, and provide resources needed for each to be an effective leader. This year we have all our committee chairs in place, and they're developing their own committees, and we're encouraging them to get a packet of material of your ideas and responsibilities and contact people if you have them in terms of what you do as a committee, and then to be able to pass that on so that you're not stuck forever because nobody else knows what you do, and to give a new chair resources to do that. And we need to remember to pray for our officers and leaders and expect them to manifest Christian principles in their conduct. And we will offer constructive feedback. Constructive feedback, not just feedback to everybody. I have told a story maybe before here. And it's been around church circles for a while. Just bear with me if you've heard it. This man loved the idea of going to the ballet. He had seen ballet on TV, and somehow the idea of these dancers being able to be so graceful and wonderful and then tell a story through music and their movements really appealed to him. And so he saved his money, and he went to New York City, and he wanted to go to at least one ballet while I was there. So when he went to get his ticket, he said, I want to be on the front row. Just like it was a basketball game or 50-yard line, front row seats for a football game and all. So the ballet started. And he was just right there, right by the orchestra. And he noticed as the ballet unfolded that the performers were sweating. And sometimes there were grunts when they did these lifts and certain jumps. And he noticed the costumes were threadbare in a place or two, and sweat stained. And he realized that the best seats were not on the front row, but they were further back, where you can kind of see things from a distance. I had a church in Springfield, Missouri, and we had an older couple that visited, and I had not met them. they started coming, and I found out that they were members, and he had been board chair a number of years before, I don't know, 15 or 20 years before. And he did a good job as board chair, but as soon as his term was up, he left. He didn't come back for 15 or 20 years. There was too much of knowing all the workings of how things are. It was a lot prettier from a distance. Amen. Okay. Paul, the apostle, had started a church in a Greek town called Corinth. And Corinth was on an isthmus. Remember that from geography? Like Panama is an isthmus between North and South America. And Corinth was a wealthy city because it was a trade center, and shipping was always kind of iffy in terms of, the navigation was all by just what people knew about what the weather might do and all. And so a way to get from one side of Greece to the other, different ports, was to sail into Corinth, and if the boat was small enough, the whole boat would be hauled over this land bridge to the other ocean on the other side. And if the ship was too big, then the cargo would be unloaded and toted over and put on another ship. So it was a wealthy town. And Paul went there and discovered that there were a group of people that were interested in what he had to say, and so a church was formed. And later on, Paul is in another place in Greece, a ways, and he gets a report that there's problems in Corinth. So this is the beginning of this letter. I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, by the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you be in agreement, that there be no divisions among you, but that you be united in the same mind and the same purpose. For it has been reported to me by Chloe's people, obviously someone in the church there, I assume a leader that Paul knew, that there are quarrels among you, my brothers and sisters. What I mean is that each of you says, well, I belong to Paul, or I belong to Apollos, or I belong to Cephas, another name for Simon Peter, the disciple, or I belong to Christ. Has Christ been divided? Was Paul crucified for you, or were you baptized in the name of Paul? I thank God that I baptized none of you except for Crispus and Gaius, and that no one can say that you were baptized in my name. For Christ didn't send me to baptize, but to proclaim the gospel, and not with eloquent wisdom, so that the cross of Christ might not be emptied of its power. For the message about the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. Does anybody actually know the name of Joe Wilstein's church? Or Jimmy Swaggart's church? Or C-Flo Dollar's church? Or all the personalities that are in the religious field today? And personality is important, It's important that your minister have a personality. But that's not why you go to church. And even Paul said, I didn't do anything eloquently because it's about the cross of Christ, not about me. And so there were factions, and some were loyal to Paul. And then there was a man named Apollos that was a great orator. And he had his points of view, and so he had a following. And then I don't think Peter would have ever gotten to Corinth, but there were those who saw Peter as, he was right there with Jesus. And, he was probably the more conservative end of all this, and that's what they were following. Or some said, well, it's like, there were divisions. And Paul must have been a little heartbroken about that, because he got these people together and they were working together and working to build up the body, and then he goes away and later finds out that things are not good. There's problems. I was pastor at Broadmoor Christian Church for 7 years, and where the church is now, it's an empty lot. I had a chance to spend that time, and I was fortunate, and the church had built up, and they were able to, again, afford a full-time minister. But when you leave, you're gone, and you don't have a right to interfere in things. And there were times when they were dealing with issues and problems that I wish that I could have been there. I wish I could have maybe helped them make some decisions that would have kept that church on the right path. But that didn't happen. But I felt bad about it. And I kind of identify with Paul here, at least, but he can write a letter. And he can lift up some issues. Because, we're all sinful people. And somebody has said, doctors get to see the worst side of people, and ministers get to see the best side of people. What do you think? Nikki? Both? Okay. Okay. Well, I see both sides of people, but often people, they put on a good front for the reverend, But actually, okay, if people feel like they're on their best behavior when they come to church, is there anything the matter with that? Isn't that a good thing? For at least an hour a week, we can be decent people. And us give it our best. But because we are human, sometimes there's meddling and there's misunderstandings and miscommunication or even mischief. And it's really hard with one of the ministers or one of the leaders in the church does something unethical. That's hard on things. And sometimes people get so off the track with some minor point, varying levels of theological understanding, and they end up, as has been said, they shoot the wounded. People who are really hurting, and maybe those people are different, and they get singled out for rejection. The Eli Lilly Foundation has given a lot of money to different church organizations. They have, for a number of years, tried to fund a study that would determine why are so many young pastors quitting the ministry. Because I don't know how long this has been going on. When I was at a seminary, it was like, well, I'm going to do this. But a lot of pastors they're done within 5 years. So, the church has spent money on training these people and giving them opportunities, and they've got lots of potential, and then they're quitting. And, one reason is student debt and not being able to get a job that pays enough to pay your debt. Or, high expectations from the church. Maybe if, you have a family, and then you may have to work long hours, and you weren't ready for that, and whatever. But anyway, so Eli Lilly has tried to do some study. I don't know where they are in terms of this has been going on for a while, what the factors are. But I think one of the things they have done is they've enabled some young ministers to take sabbaticals, even though it wasn't, they didn't earn it as far as the church is concerned. And they've had some retreats for people to kind of come together and talk about common issues and all. Because sometimes it is tough. In 1999, I led a mission trip to New York City. And we hooked up with an organization that got us out into soup kitchens and organizations that were caring for the poor and the homeless and all that. We kind of spread out over the city, rode the subway to get around, and stayed at the youth hostel. It was quite an experience. And I told Kathy it was kind of like keeping 22 bowling balls on top of a hill. They just, everybody wanted to run in their separate directions and all. And sometimes that's just kind of like meetings at church. Everybody kind of takes off in a different way. And sometimes we are divided because we get stuck on a point. And one point becomes the most important thing, more than anything else, rather than the cross of Christ. Well, I've had brushes with Kings Highway for a lot of years, and have always enjoyed that. And this last 8 or 9 months, I got to see all that up close. And I've got some real good feelings about some things that happened. This whole Epiphany process. We had a meeting in August. We had these 2 retreats in the fall. Lots of people came, and they put a lot of seat time in on those meetings, and they listened and they responded, and lots of good ideas have come out of that, lots of work, and it's kind of pointing us in direction. We're not stalled. We're just in a pause mode right now, and we're going to be moving out into some areas in the community that we never have before in new ways. So I'm just kind of excited about your excitement with all of that. There's been a really great support for trying to get the youth program running. And a lot of people have been stepping up to the plate to help that happen. And people have been willing to kick in money if it's needed and so on. Our treasurer is here. I want to tell you, I'm just proud that this church, we raised almost $500,000 last year. It's a lot of money. Not that we didn't spend all of it, but the stewardship of our facility is a big responsibility. Especially this building. This is a treasure in our community. So our property takes a lot of our budget. But you are givers, and you give generously. There were a number of traditions that got lived out during the year. The Halloween party. Bible school, decorating for Christmas, and all that. And it's kind of interesting to stand back, and I didn't have anything to do with any of those things. It just kind of, it happened. People showed up to decorate and take care of things, and that's just neat. The dinners, the support when there's been a funeral, special offerings. We're collecting soup. Next week, this month we were collecting cornbread mix, and every month there's something, and every month there's a big pile of this stuff that you're willing to bring. I think we had some services that made a difference in people's lives last year. We had some good things happen in worship. And I have observed that, almost universally speaking, you treat each other with kindness and with courtesy. Even when you disagree. You know, I've got great friends that we are poles apart on a lot of issues, but we're still great friends because what it unites us is more important than what might divide us. The fact that we have unity doesn't mean that we're all uniform. We can have unity and differences in our opinions about truth without compromising the loyalty that we have to our faith, to our confession of faith, to representing the cross of Jesus Christ. So I felt a time or two, sometimes this last year, you know, I'm their leader, which way do we go? But I keep saying, I'm just passing through, I'm not really the leader. But, you know, somebody keeps telling me, yes, you are. And got to ask the question, you know, are you born a leader or born a follower, or have you become? So, a little video.